Moses was leading his people through the desert. They were tired. It had been years. There was no land of milk and honey. There was just sand. He needed a break. He took a little time off, went out, needed to get some rest, to talk to God. He needed a little clarity, needed to figure out what was going on. In the meantime, the people were restless. They needed clarity too. And their leader was gone. They didn't know when he was coming back. When he forgot his phone, they couldn't text him. The thing is that they were frightened. And they were thirsty. And they really didn't know if their leaders knew where they were going or how to lead. And with Moses gone, the people asked Aaron, his brother, to please just melt down whatever gold they had and form it into a calf. Because the people were familiar with worshiping objects, with worshiping statues. They found it comforting, and in that moment, that's what they needed. They didn't really know what Moses was talking about. They didn't know where he went. They just knew that worshiping calves felt right, and they needed a God who was going to show them where to go rather than leading them in circles. If this God didn't know what to do next, they were going to find themselves another one. So when Moses returned, he was horrified. He had with him 10 commandments, the basis of a code of law, to help them all get a shared language and context. But his people had already betrayed Yahweh, the God who liberated them. So Moses called the people to repent. He said, if you are willing to atone for this terrible behavior, just walk over to me. And a lot of them did. They walked over to him. And he said, all right, I need a little time to think about this. And everyone sort of went back to his house. And then he said to the people who repented, you know, seriously, those people really did betray our God. They were not willing to atone. They did not recommit themselves to the God of freedom, and so now I need for all of you to go out and kill them, which they did. The people went out, they obeyed, they slaughtered their neighbors. That is the story, my friends. And I am not going to try and make sense of it for you. There's a lot of inconsistency there, and it ends with the massacre of 3,000 people. It's one of those stories that requires a whole lot of interpretation, which is annoying because it's also very critical to understanding how we get this Jewish theology of atonement, which is the grounding for the entire Jewish New Year. This ritual, this Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, time of repentance, comes from stories like that. And I genuinely get confused by it. I mean, why is this infraction worthy of death? They actually made this calf before they had the commandment not to worship other gods. And now that they had the commandments, how could this God tell someone to kill, tell the righteous to kill the unrepentant, when he had just told them not to kill? But there's a reason I'm telling you the story. It's one of those stories we could dismiss, but I'm telling you the story for a reason. I think that there is something in there that really does speak to us. When I think of the story, I don't identify with the people who saw that Moses was angry and ran to him and said that they were sorry. I'm just not likely to be one of those sort of first in line righteous people. I do empathize with Aaron, the leader who gave in to the will of the people even when he knew it probably wasn't the right move. But really, when I hear the story, it's the people who demanded the creation of the golden calf who I fully understand. Those are my people. The sinners, the broken, the confused, the ones making the bad decisions, those are always my people. Last spring, I was in Jordan in a desert, close to and sometimes in the precise location as those nomadic people. It is massive. There's sand in every direction. It's hot during the day. It's cold at night. We were told if you dig deeply enough, you'd hit water, but there were very few signs of that. On our first night in Wadi Rum, which is the most difficult of the deserts in the region, I was so lonely. It was freezing cold. Sitting in the back of a pickup truck, watching the sunset, feeling profound disconnection from the people I was with, from my family so far away, from why I was there or who I was supposed to be. Well, the rest of the group explored these beautiful red sand dunes and drank desert tea and tried to light a fire with dried leaves. They were doing what one might do on such a trip, on such a night, and I couldn't see through the loneliness to join them. And like so many times on that trip, I felt a deep connection with the ancient peoples who passed there, which is why I can well imagine how desperate they were. Moses was gone. They had no idea if he was coming back. They had so little food or water, and nothing was growing in that sand. If someone had told me that a golden calf would make me feel better, I might have melted down some earrings myself. The ritual of this 10-day period, these days of awe, wasn't made for perfect people, for the righteous people, but for all of us who periodically worship golden calves. It's said on this day, the first night of Rosh Hashanah, God opens the book of life, getting ready to inscribe each person's name and their fate. This gives us each 10 days to consider our behavior for this whole last year, to atone when necessary, and to hope that God will be generous when deciding what's in store for us. The holiday begins in just a few hours and starts with a feast with a lot of apples and plums and honey, reminding us of the sweetness of life. As a kid, it was always my favorite. My mother would let us have sugar with dinner. But by Tuesday evening, it's time to get serious. This is our chance to look at the year and at ourselves and see where we went wrong. What did we do that needs to be undone? What did we say that we need to take back? Who did we harm, and how did we fail? And for what are we guilty? Sometimes taking this kind of moral inventory is difficult. It takes time to audit an entire year. More often, the part that takes time, at least for me, is parsing out where I'm actually wrong and where I want to say I'm sorry just because it would make me feel better. I actually just watched my 12-year-old do this. Right? Somebody was really wrong, and he accused him of it. And then my son ended up saying he was sorry, and when I asked why, he said, I just don't want to fight anymore. I thought, oh, I get that. It's just easier sometimes. It can make you feel better. I would generally rather be wrong than right. When I'm wrong, I still have some control, some ability to fix something, to make it better. When I'm right, there's nothing to be done about the fractures of the relationship. I saw him see that. It was better just to be wrong. He could heal the relationship that way. Often, it's even more difficult than just that, right? Life is so complicated. Situations are complex, and they have all these moving parts, right? I'm wrong about this piece, and I'm right about that one. Or I'm right about how I acted. No, I'm right, but then how I acted as a result of being right, that was wrong. I'll tell you, that one is very common for me. I'm very bad at being right. I act poorly, and then my being right gets very lost in all of my being wrong, and then I don't know how to fix it because the right and the wrong are so tangled up with each other. As I get older, I've gotten better at being quiet. I can more often just let it be. I've seen how not responding or not reacting or not speaking at all can just sometimes calm the waters, making it possible for truth to become apparent without me having to point it out. But not always. I'm not always good at that. One of the times I should have stayed quiet was last year on Indigenous Peoples Day. I was angry about white supremacy culture being played out in this congregation. I was right in that it needs to be dismantled, and we were living into that system with precision. And I should have stayed quiet about it. I should have let it go and found ways to address it that were less direct and confrontational, less pointed. I really regret that sermon. When I think about sermons, I think that they should make us uncomfortable sometimes, but I needed to build up more trust before I said any of those things. And even now, a year later, I don't think I've built up enough trust for that. So I am sorry that I preached that sermon, and I really will continue to do better. And I'm sure that that is not the only thing I messed up this year, although that one's been on my mind. And thinking about this, I was sort of taking my own inventory, thinking about the year and other things that came up, like I don't visit my mom enough. I just don't. And I'm gonna regret it if I don't change that. I don't always prioritize my family over work in a way that might be appropriate. I haven't always been kind or thoughtful or generous. And of course there's more, right? There's always so much more. And I'm gonna take more time over these next 10 days to get clear about all of it. And I'm inviting all of you to do the same. Take the time. Consider. Consider where the right and the wrong get all tangled up in each other. Consider all the messiness. Consider all the broken, the fragmented relationships that you too have left behind and need to find ways to name and to begin to heal. Thursday was the first day of autumn, and it shows on cue. The weather turned chilly. The change of seasons is always an invitation to turn inward, to get ready, to prepare for what's coming. It's a time to put away the sandals and pull out the sweaters, to cover the grill and find the Dutch oven. It's time to look around the house, where you live physically and where you live emotionally and spiritually, in preparation for what's coming. The book of life is being written. Whether you believe that's true this once or it's written every day with every decision you make all through the year, we have this opportunity, and it is an opportunity over these next 10 days to take our own moral inventory and to see where we've done well, where we've been patient and open, thoughtful, compassionate, forgiving, and kind, and where we've been worshiping golden calves.